but hating on the cameras. This thing, I always like Samsung because they always just throw in a bunch of random stuff in their cameras for their budget tier devices. So this thing does have that quadruple camera setup on the back. So it has that 48 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro, and then a 5 megapixel depth lens. And I think actually this is not that bad of a camera. You can do 4K at 30. Surprisingly, when you look at this phone's camera UI and you look at something like even like the Galaxy S21's camera UI, they are almost identical. And for those of you who have seen my Samsung Galaxy S21 comparisons I did not too long ago, you can see the same exact thing. I mean, these devices are so similar in terms of the UIs that it's pretty insane. And I definitely will tell you the fact that this thing cannot do 4K at 60 is it's not like a make it or break it, but it is kind of one of those things that is not probably going to age it extremely well, but you can do apparently 1080p at 120, which is pretty insane. So the back camera is actually not that bad. You don't have a telephoto lens, no 8K capability, but at least you have that ultra wide sensor, which is something I'm really happy about. Had this thing only had a wide angle lens and then the macro and depth lens, that would have been different. But the fact that it does have that ultra wide sensor, I think is a pretty cool deal for me. On the front, you have that 32 megapixel camera, and apparently you can do 4K at 30 on that phone, which I didn't even know you could do. So I think that's another plus point for this thing. I think the camera overall for the front and the back is solid. As I mentioned before, and I've said this for years now since this thing came out, or for like a year, it's actually a really solid phone in terms of the camera. It's definitely not the best, but for day-to-day tasks, I think a majority of people are going to be okay with it for sure. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up here. Now